3, go.
Geo. Why didn't the bicycle ride in the race?
Why didn't the bicycle ride in the race? Why?
Because he was too tired.
That is terrible. That's the worst joke ever.
I got you, brother. I always got you, brother.
That is a classical dad joke, man. That was awesome. That was terrible.
You're welcome.
Thank you for being a great dad, man. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for being here. Today is January 4th, 2024. Welcome to this new year. I love the new year vibe. There's optimism. There are goal settings. People are writing them down. There's a whole new possibility happening this week. And I love that because there's someone that said that goals and dreams only happen when you set them or when you dream. So go ahead and give yourself some permission to dream with me. I love that. Never mind. I'm not going to go in that direction. But thank you for being here. Chase, love seeing your picture. Maria Sangria, love it. Virtue, Rashida, Obdulia, thank you for being here. I love it. And Stan's coming up. Okay, so today we have a phenomenal conversation. We're going to dance in this conversation created by Dr. Monikah Ogando. She says, what are we spiritually designed to make assumptions? What does she mean by spiritually designed to make assumptions? What does it mean to be spiritually designed, and what does it mean to make assumptions? So that today we're going to be dancing in that. So I want you to put your hat on, your spiritual hat on, however you look at transcending yourself, if you will. But before we do that, we're going to anchor ourselves to be here. And I want to celebrate that Stan is here. Stan, where are you, my friend, and how are you?
My brother Gio, I am right here where I am supposed to be. The only place I could be is right here. And I'm great, brother. Today I feel absolutely blessed.
Yes, today and yesterday, you are the way that you say that you are, and today
Yes.
You are great. Author Robin, what time is it, and one person you're going to hug today?
All right, Gio, I got to tell you, time is right now. That is the time, the only time it can be right now, and now it's right now again. And guess what? It's right now. So I'm going to hug Stan for being one of my latest customers and purchasing my book, Stan.
I got it yesterday, too. I got it yesterday.
You're the man. All right. I'm going to hug Stan today.
Oh, I want to get your book. I want to put in the chat later when you're not driving.
Yeah, man, I got it.
Oh, I want to get your book. Okay, so congratulations on writing a book, by the way. That is awesome.
Yes.
So today's conversation, Thursdays is a spiritual day. It's a day for you and I to explore the possibility of something beyond what's understanding, what's beyond one can understand with your senses, but you certainly feel it wherever you are and any phase of your life. You certainly, I'm asserting this, right? But you certainly feel that this design that you are, who you are, it's not simply bones, right, and skin and getting older, right? There's something about you that connects with all of it. And I think in every phase of my life, I have certainly felt that. And so Thursdays, it's about opening up that gate of thinking. And we at the Daily Huddle were certainly not want you or want anyone to feel that you need to connect with a particular religion upbringing or a religion thought process, if you will, but mostly that you allow yourself to connect with all of it, right? And see, well, and in a way, connect with the history of humanity. and how we have evolved in that way. And so today, spiritual matters because what we have found is that, on Mondays we talk about finances. For people who have a breakthrough in their finances, they quickly discover that that's not the whole story, that one can live a really incomplete life, even though you can get all the appetizers in the world. So you've got to have a little bit more. You've got to have health. And that's why on Tuesday we talk about health. How do you take care of this temple that you call your body? And what is your relationship with your body? Your body carries you everywhere. It takes you wherever you want to go. Your body is this best friend that you have. And then you can treat it in many different ways, and it's going to stay with you. I mean, your body is sensitive, but it's not really, because we do a lot of crap to our body and still there for many, many, many years. So it's kind of like a best friend. So how are you treating your best friend? But then we have also found that if you have money and if you have health, but if relationships are not there, if you don't necessarily have a capacity to create strong relationships, then certainly you are missing one of the greatest things about life, which is the people in your life. How do you have relationship with the people in your life? But if you have the money, if you have the health, and if you have the relationships, you can still be incomplete. Interestingly, unless one begins to discover that there's something that transcends about all of us, which is our spiritual connection to something more. And that's a very magical place to look at for the possibility of having a complete life. And so for that conversation, we have been developing a really profound relationship with Dr. Monikah Ogando, that today, and she has Monikah, I always miss your doctorate degree. You have a doctorate degree in spiritual,
in psychology and in comparative religions.
In comparative religions, right? And so Monikah brings this plethora of experience and conversations around spirituality. And I really love it because she encompasses all of them. And one can challenge her, or the conversation, if you will, rather than challenging her. One can challenge the conversation in many directions. And then on Fridays, we talk about businesses, right? Business. And we love talking about business because it's the juice of life, is to spiritually give another our goods and services. However, today, Monikah, we're going to be talking about, are we spiritually designed to make assumptions? And I was trying to discover, what did you mean by spiritually designed? What does that mean? And what assumptions? So if you don't mind kind of warming up to this conversation, welcome. Thank you for being here. What did you mean by spiritually designed and to make assumptions?
Thank you for having me. I apologize for being late. Here's the thing. Our brain biologically is designed we are biologically designed for protection, right? And so our brain is very, very good at detecting patterns, because this is the way that we can summarily decide what is a danger and what isn't, right? And so that is why when you see colors like red or orange or yellow in the wild, you assume that these things are fruits or vegetables. And when you see green, you assume that they're grass or leaves or trees. When you see brown, however, you take a pause, because brown is the color of, for example, a tree trunk. And a tree trunk, if you run into it, can kill you. It's also the color of the skin of an animal. That might be a predator and can kill you. And so that's like a really basic example of there are certain assumptions that we make because they protect us, right? And because they ensure our survival, at least in the wild, right? So that's why even now in modern color theory, you don't see too many people saying that my favorite color is brown, because from way back in the day. We're like, oh, brown could be dangerous. Hold on. So anyway, the idea of making assumptions is so that we can make educated decisions with limited information. That's the idea of an assumption. The problem is that sometimes that becomes a maladaptive coping mechanism. Sometimes we make assumptions with outdated information or irrelevant information or based on unconscious biases about gender, about race, about age, about socioeconomic status, about countries, about politics, etc. And from a spiritual perspective, we are designed to be creators, not survivors. Our survival is already implied. So you're free to create because your survival is not at stake. So biologically, you're designed to make assumptions, but not spiritually. And so when you see yourself making assumptions, you ask yourself, well, am I coming down to my lower animal or my ego level? Or am I being curious and exploratory, which is more of my spiritual nature? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Well, I want to, this is awesome, man. This is like what the F? But let me try to recreate what you're saying. I'm taking notes here. So biologically, I am in many ways, by default, I make assumptions. And one of the assumptions, and I love the example you gave, was if I'm out in the forest and I see red or I see a particular color, then I could make the assumption, oh, well, that's vegetables, well, that's fruits, or that's a trunk tree. So I have a default automatic assumptions about the way I see things if I'm out in the wild. And then you're bringing up this other aspect, which is quite magical in many ways, or thoughtful, which is this spiritual person that I say I am may have also assumptions. But you're saying, or what I'm hearing, maybe not what you're saying, what I'm hearing you're saying is the spirit I am has been designed to create, given that what's at the default is to survive. Mm-hmm. My biological assumption, if you will, the animal I am is here to survive, and the spiritual aspect of me is here to design. Mm-hmm. And what I heard you were saying is, but I have no idea how to do that.
You have
what
no
I
idea
heard was that
you have no idea how to do what?
Create.
No, we're born knowing how to create. Look at a child. Look at a child. When a child is completely in a foreign environment, like as soon as you're born, you're in a foreign environment. You came from a watery womb to a dry, hospital room, or, dry cotton blanket thing that they swaddle you in, whatever. It's completely strange, right? And you're looking around and you're kind of like checking it out, etc., right? You're testing out the suit that you're in, the meat suit that you're in, right? You don't have motor control yet. You don't have memory skills yet. You don't have linguistic skills yet. You can't even lift up your head. And eventually you gain enough biological strength and biological instincts to, it's like, oh, if I'm hungry and I cry, I get fed. If I'm bored and I cry, I get hugged. If I'm dirty and I cry, I get changed. This is pretty sweet. I'm gonna start crying. Yes.
But wouldn't I say that's survival rather than creation?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, because when you're first born, that's all you are as an animal. Mm-hmm. You don't have any cognition. You don't have any free will, right? That comes a little bit later. So you fast forward to when you're 3 or 4 years old, right? And you see another child in the playground or whatever, you're just like, oh, let's go play. You're not thinking fear. You're not thinking this stranger danger, right? You're thinking, let's go play. And then when you do play, you're like, let's make a castle. Where did you get a castle from? I don't know. You saw it somewhere. Let's make a sand dune. Let's make a field of play. Let's make flowers. Let's make da, 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 da. So you're always designed, as you're growing into and maturing into your spiritual self, from the very beginning, you start creating. The thing is that when you're little like that and you don't know enough about the world, you may get in trouble. And that may put your survival at stake. because stranger danger, because you don't cross the street when you're not looking and you don't check both sides, because some people might reject you and it might hurt your feelings, right? And so those two natures.
I love it. So what I'm discovering, what you're saying is, I am designed to create.
Yeah.
That is cool. Yeah, continue.
Yeah. And so what happens is when you're first born and you're just like a meat suit, that is why it's so important to bond with mother, to have a safe environment when you're first born, etc. That's why I say that your 0 to 7 is crucial. It's for you to develop your self-identity and for you to develop a sense of safety around the world. Because if you had a traumatic childhood, if you had a childhood where you didn't know where your food was coming from, or where your love was coming from, or where your safety was at stake, then your spiritual development later gets stunted and it gets tainted by that lack of certainty in your survival. Does that make sense? And so that's why it's important to lay the foundation. When you see chakras, for example, we're familiar here in the Daily Huddle with chakras. So you have like the lower chakras, the roots, the sacral, the solar, then you have the heart center. And that heart center says it's the Christ seed atom. And in the Bible, it says nobody, the lower centers can come to the Father, meaning the higher centers, except through me. And so we have to be orderly in the way that we develop. It's like before you can exercise your spiritual assignment, you have to incarnate. But that's not a 9-month process in the womb. That's a 7-year process in your childhood. Right? Because it's in your childhood that you get muscular development, that you get motor skills, that you get cognitive memory, that you get linguistics, that you get attachment, and then individuation, et cetera, et cetera. So by the time that you're 7, you're like, okay, what's going on here? Yes, sir.
My professional practice have led me to see that most people, first 7 years is quite dramatic. So it's like one of the things that you're saying is, what I'm hearing you're saying is, my first 7 years have create a foundation for the opportunity of the creation, for creating. It creates a foundation for the self.
Sure.
And for most people, it's a terrible foundation.
Really?
So they kind of like need a rebirth.
Well, you might have some things that you need to unlearn, sure. You might have some things that you need to update. That's why the power of assumption is so important, because sometimes we're treating people in our adult life the way that we were treated, or the way that we observed our parents or our caregivers treat people from 0 to 7. So that's an imprint, right? If in your 0 to 7, you found out that the way you get love is by being a good girl, by getting good grades and eating all your food in your plate and putting it away and doing your, making your bed and then you grow up to be somebody who performs for love, right? Let me do these acts of service. Let me make sure that I'm helpful. Let me make sure that I'm useful. This is particularly relevant to boys.
A life crisis waiting to happen. I want you to know that Rashida has her hand up. And I have a question.
Hi, Rashida.
Feliz año. Thank you so much, Dr. Ogando, for the points we're taking. Because I say that I live what I was taught until the day today at 63 years old. grandparents and my uncles and my aunties instill in me what I am today. That spirituality, that charisma, that giving, that love, that persona that I see my foreparents was doing is what I'm doing today. So yes, I agree with that for 7 years. Do I want to take it back? No. I loved it because I implement in it, I give it more life. I and why I say I give it more life is that I saw my auntie the week of Thanksgiving in Costa Rica. She's 87 years old. And she looked at me and she said, wow, you have not changed a bit. You always want more information. You always just give me, but it's not giving me to not share it. It's giving it to implement on it. And she looked at me and I was eating and she said, you eat the same way like when you were 7 years old. So yes, it stays there. Thank you so much for the topic. And I didn't even think about it that way. But now that I've seen it and I see my girl, them doing the same thing that I'm doing. But guess what? They learn from the best. Thank you so much, Doctor.
You sound like you have some amazing grandparents. That's awesome. That's awesome.
That is awesome. Thank you, Rashida. Dr. Ogando, let me ask you this. So in putting the conversation together, are we spiritually designed to make assumptions? What would be the assumptions that I could be spiritually designed?
Well, that you're spiritually designed is an assumption.
Oh, that's cool.
Because there are some people that believe, there's no such thing as a spiritual intelligence, divine creator out there. This is just, a rock governed by gravity and happenstance. That's an assumption.
A rock governed by gravity. I love it.
So that's why I say check your assumptions, because out of whatever assumptions you are making, your conclusions make sense. See, a lot of times what we think is we only see the other person's conclusions and we assume that you're making the same assumptions I'm making, but I'm not jumping to the same conclusion. So what's wrong with you? All right. So wait a minute. I think that we live in a friendly universe. Why are you so rude? But maybe they're operating from, we live in an unfriendly universe, so I have to protect myself. So it makes sense to be rude. Or at least that's how you're assigning it. They don't think they're being rude. They just think they're being, clinical or distance or whatever the case may be, right? So even the words that we use, even in me describing it this way, makes an assumption about where you're operating from. And that requires a certain level of discipline and rigor in observing where we're standing, almost at all times, right? When you can be aware that at any time I am making an assumption about me, about my relationship to the world and to other people, and to their relationship to the world and to me, what they owe me, what I owe them, then that becomes kind of like the seedling in the garden of our relationship, right? And so, but it's just an assumption. And just like you made that assumption, you can make another one that serves you better. And this is what happens when we grow up spiritually. When we grow up spiritually, we may look at our 0 to 7, and like you said, most people had a traumatic childhood. We could look at our child and be like, that was jacked up. I'm going to do something different. So you make a different assumption. But it doesn't stop being an assumption. It's part of creation. When you assume something, you're creating a possibility that may or may not be based in truth or fact or whatever. It's just what you decided to stand on. Isn't that amazing? That even in making assumptions, you're exercising your spiritual right to create.
An assumption is a spiritual right to create. I have never put those two sentences together, and I love it. Okay. I love it. An assumption is my spiritual right to create. Now I gotta check my assumption, but it is my right to create.
Sure.
That is phenomenal. I'm gonna
But
write
then you
that.
get to check, like, is that what I want to create? Is that because there are some assumptions that create distance and mayhem and confusion. And then there's some assumptions that create intimacy and connection and power and possibility and collective collective goodwill. So then at all points, you're making a decision. Is that who I am? Is that who I decide to be? You've heard me say, all we are ever doing with our consciousness is managing our orientation. That's all we're ever doing, is managing our orientation. Am I operating from my lower vibration or my biological instinct to survive? Or am I operating from my spiritual instinct to create? So are my assumptions, I'm always going to be making assumptions. I'm always going to be manifesting. Some people are like, oh, I gotta get good at manifesting. You're born knowing how to manifest. The question is, are you manifesting consciously, deliberately, with intention, or are you manifesting by default? And the way that you're manifesting by default is the assumptions you made when you were 0 to 7. If in your 0 to 7, you thought the world is dangerous and I have to protect myself, or men are dangerous, or women are dangerous, or everybody wants something from me, or I have to perform for love, et cetera, et cetera. Those are assumptions that are going to drive your relationships in your grown-up years. And then you get to a relationship and you're like, I don't want to make that assumption anymore. It's become too painful. The thing that used to help me with my survival is now a maladaptive coping mechanism, and I need to let it go. But that requires a certain level of self-awareness that takes patience and unconditionality and trial and error. And some of us don't create enough space to try and error. We have a very dysfunctional relationship with failure. We're like, no, don't do that. Whatever you do, don't fail.
Toxic relationship with failure. Man, time flies. This is such a great conversation. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me on my
This is so great. I just wrote it down and I'm going to put it somewhere in a big flip chart here. My assumptions, my interpretations is my spiritual right to create. I want to continue to create. Dr. Monikah Ogando, thank you so much for creating this thoughtful conversation. Do you want to end the day, or you want me to do it?
Sure, I'll end the day. And I'll say this, my last thought about this is that as you could tell by my coming in late and by having a really heady conversation, first thing out of the gate this year, is that we're checking all assumptions this year at the Daily Huddle, Thursday Spiritual Matters. And it's time to ratchet it up, right? We do certain things, certain habits, like be here at 9 o'clock Eastern every single day. But I want you to always be in the creative question of, how do I know that the Daily Huddle has been a positive impact in my life? What can I observably see in my relationships, in my money, in my wisdom, in my patience, in my character development, wherever you're looking? Where can I observably see a measurable difference because I've been watching the Daily Huddle? That's how we are looking at the work that we do here and how we show up. It's like, how do we make sure that we are a positive influence in people's lives and that their lives and their days get pivotally better because we were in it? So I invite you to be in that question for yourself in your relationships. And as always, of course, love generously, laugh a lot, give of yourself, your time, energy, attention, stress less. It ain't that important. And if it is, you'll handle it wisely. So either way, you got it. Also, sleep at least 7 hours, eat more plant-based foods, move your tail feather, make sure that you exercise, that you move, that you take a walk, that you twerk a little in your kitchen when you're dancing, just get it in. And then, of course, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Always audit your assumptions. I don't mean get rid of your assumptions. I just mean audit them. Make sure they're good.
Thanks, Doc. Thank you, family.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good day. Bye.
Everybody.
Thank you. That was